In 2005, when I first began living in China, rent was incredibly low, as in, $100 per month for a two-bedroom apartment near Zhejiang University in Hangzhou. This wasn't just due to the fact that everything was cheaper back then or a lack of adjusting for inflation, but relative to the general price points of other goods and services, rent in China was startlingly cheap. There was simply a lack of demand for rental properties, and it would have been a stretch to even call the rental market nascent. It hardly even existed. While manual migrant workers were renting out bunks in dormitories and rooms in suburban villages, the movement of educated, white-collar workers to China's big cities had yet to shift into high gear. There was an absolute glut of new housing being brought onto the market, and the cost of purchasing a home was relatively affordable, not to mention the fact that there was an acute amount of social pressure to own a home, and having to rent was almost pitiable. Today, the housing scene in China is very different. With a sizable portion of the population priced out of the market in key areas, as well as a population that has grown accustomed to being geographically agile and moving from city to city for the best opportunities, renting has started to lose its taboo status, and there are even signs of it starting to be seen as modern, fiscally strategic, and perhaps even a little chic. In many parts of China, the housing market has topped out and stabilized, the construction boom has been curbed, and there is a growing suspicion among the young generation that going into long-term debt to pay an overinflated price for a house that statistically will be ready to demolition around the same time they have it paid off may not be the best of life decisions. Renting is now a viable option for China's younger generation and has become an industry that's now set to boom. When we discuss China's real estate boom period, circa 2005 to 2016, we have to keep in mind that home ownership was still a relatively new phenomenon. In a rather underappreciated economic revolution, China's real estate market was reborn in 1998, when the central government began breaking up workers' units and privatizing housing. During this period, people were suddenly given the right to sell or rent out their homes, and China obtained one of the highest rates of home ownership in the world. But, as with most things in China, there was a deeper story behind the numbers, as in this era people were basically given their homes for extremely low prices. For my parents' generation, they don't even think about renting, Cody Chao, a 20-something medical student from Suzhou, explained. Besides, housing wasn't that much of a financial issue. I know my dad got the place that I'm at right now at a very reasonable price, like, a crazy cheap price.